Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play another Metroid 2 Remake. In the last one we got here to the GFS Thoth region after exploring the distribution center a bit. And now we're going to explore, because you might remember they said there was movement in this hall, and the box brain and Ymir nightmare arm parts? What the broken thing? In an energy tank at least. That's weird. Let's get the hell out of here. Don't, oh, damn it. Optional boss for the game is the Genesis, an ambush predator. This blind animal has adapted to hunt in the dark, relying on its specialized senses to stalk prey. Its body offers little protection and will attempt to conceal itself in the shadows as a result. Its acidic blood is used as a projectile vehicle on hemorrhaging, basically an alien reference. The Genesis naturally hunts in groups, making it a highly successful species with little need to evolve. Its DNA suggests it belongs to the oldest living lineage on SR388, granting its name. This is actually a returning creature, even though the design is different. I'll get into that in a bit, though. This is probably the easiest boss fight in the game, though, and the fact that it just has so little HP. Super missiles really take it out quickly. It basically just tries to jump on you to get some slashes on it and spit its corrosive blood. That's about it. It's honestly a pretty easy boss fight. But yeah, this thing's actually a returning creature from Metroid Fusion. You might remember during this section when there was a power outage on the ship when you had to meet the iced-up Ridley corpse. And in the Torian area, where I had to fight the Golden Space Pirates, there were these little reddish blue-pink creatures under the in little corridors on the ceiling and under the ground, or on the floor technically. Those are Genesis. I believe you could see them back in the third to the last part of Metroid Fusion. So that's a nice little reference, and a nice little alien reference in total. Also, fun fact, in terms of developmental time, that boss was finished within the last week of programming for this game. That's really cool. And there's a power bomb over there, and I believe that ship in the background is an outright Metroid Prime 2 reference. I forget which one of these is a Prime 2 reference and which one of these is a Prime 3 reference. I think the Thoth is Prime 3. Well, at least with its Galactic Federation class. Although, speaking of programming, one thing I've never quite gone over is the fact that this game had a couple of demos along the way, most of which were just fill-out official demos, AM2R and such. They actually were pretty extensive, like they had full-out areas of the game with some minor differences here and there, obviously. But there was also a set of demos known as Metroid Confrontation. The first one was about 5 minutes, the second one was about 40, well, second version, rather. And they actually were a lot of, like, early tests for a lot of the mechanics that the developer used in this game towards the end. It ended with a Ridley boss fight, randomly enough, most of which was just lifted right out of Zero Mission. And it's honestly still pretty entertaining. Obviously, this is the better experience just because it's a more full experience, but Confrontation was a pretty good proof of concept for what it was. I remember having a hell of a time playing it, though, because I had to use a keyboard for that. That wasn't fun. Never play Metroid with a keyboard, kiddies. It's just not right. Either way, we could head back to the distribution center now. However, it's at this point in the game we have to do what every Metroid game has to an extent, aside from maybe Super Metroid and Metroid 2, I suppose. It's time for our item cleanup, because there are a few items throughout the world we couldn't get yet or I just saved for later. Like, I could have gotten this much earlier in the game, but it's a lot easier just to do this. So, welcome to cleanup, and honestly, it's not a very annoying cleanup, because if you played the game the way I did, there's a few items you left very few items behind. But no matter what, you do have to go back to some areas like in Zero Mission and Fusion, since there are some things blocked behind power bomb blocks and screw attack blocks. Our first destination, though, is back at the Golden Temple, because there are, I think, 3, maybe 4 items there we have yet to get. We've been able to get one of them, well, technically 2, for a long time now, but it's just better to come back here all at once. First off, there's a missile tank right there, and I believe in here is just an outright power bomb. Have to wonder why they didn't just have them in the same room, but oh well. And next up, I believe the next one I'm getting is the one I could have gotten a long time ago. You could potentially have gotten this item in your first visit to the Golden Temple, because what you would have had to do is just spider ball around the entire outer corridor. However, or outer area room outside the temple. However, that takes too long in terms of a speed run, so it's just faster for me to do this and completely miss. It is still faster for me to space jump up here, though, because the spider ball takes too long in comparison. Let's see, should be showing up any sec. There you are. You can spider ball up to the ceiling, as I just mentioned, but that takes too long in the speedrun route. Because I am trying to get the best ending image. Whether or not I'm successful or not, you'll see next part, but yeah. And now for the last item, I believe. You could only do this after getting the distribution center hooked up, because you need the electric orb in order to access the little door. Also, I actually thought what happened here was I let the ball get too far up screen, but actually what I realized in editing is that what really happened there was I accidentally bumped the ball into the door, and that's no good. The orbs are kind of annoying at times, I'll be completely honest, just because their physics are a bit, not wonky, but they feel a bit too light for what it is. Speedrunners know how to take good advantage of it, though. I'll be honest, though, in terms of, like, overall ideas, this is probably one of the more, I suppose, neat cleanups. Because if you do things right, there's not much you have to go back for, and even then, because this game has a really cool quick travel system, you don't have to go back for too much. So that's really cool of them. Also, now time for a Metroid Fusion Shine Spark chain in order to get a super missile tank. If you're good, you can get this done in one go. I'm not too good. At least I wasn't this run. I believe my first well, not my first playthrough, probably my first practice playthrough I got this done right, but not so much here. But you know, that stuff happens. We also have, I think, one of the few uses in the series we've seen of the Morph Ball Shine Spark. We've seen this used twice now, I think, because we only ever had to use it for one thing in Zero Mission, I believe, and that was that super missile tank you could have theoretically gotten early. But, oh well. And that's a super missile. One thing I actually do hope that if Metroid ever makes new Nintendo games, if Nintendo ever makes more Metroid games in the general style of the older ones, I actually kind of hope they take some pointers from this game's ideas, because a quick travel system would be really good. Also, over here is where the quick travel place in this part is. General rule of thumb, whenever you find a hidden room that's purple on the map, that means it's of the quick travel rooms. And, well, that's just really good design ideas right there, honestly. Because that means it's extra hidden. Next up, we're heading back to the tower really, really quickly for one item. That's it. Why? Well, there just happens to be one missile tank that's down here we couldn't get earlier. I think there's a door to the left, but I forget where it leads, honestly. It's either a sub-quick travel destination, because some areas do have quick travel, more than one quick travel area within them, or it's like leads to a cracked door that originally led to the power plant, but you wouldn't be able to do anything about, obviously. Thinking about that, though, that has always been one of my bigger issues with Metroid 2. You can't really sequence break in anything, and the fan remake changes keeps that the same, really. Either way, now we're actually going to head back towards progression here in the distribution center, because we finished up most of the cleanup, actually. And now we have these blue walls. These blue walls make you unable to fire any of your weapons. Way you can get around that is by placing a power bomb in front of most of the doors, however. Especially right here, because this will allow me to get, I believe it's a missile tank? Yeah, it's a missile tank. And this is actually pretty interesting, this little puzzle areas. Plus it leads to another power-up for us, so that's always good. Also, I apologize if the frame rate is once again shitting the bed, but it's the same thing as it was with the power bombs. It's just probably doing this in my video editor, causing things to freeze up. Oh, that thing looks weird. And now we have the gravity suit from Super Metroid. So now any water physics are now removed, as are the little weird, shocky blue things from these blue walls. And our defense is once again increased. I believe it now means our defense is... I'm actually not sure of the percentages, honestly. It's either that the Various suit increases your damage by your defense by 50%, so it's 115. This doubles it purely, or this adds another multiplier to your defense, effectively tripling it. It's one of those two, I'm not sure which. Either way, since we have the gravity suit, we can now freely explore the rest of the distribution center that we couldn't earlier due to the water. And that's about all that changes. The underwater areas aren't even that more perilous in my eyes. Though we do have to do it just to get the rest of the items, as well as our last major power-up, if I recall correctly. Also, if you didn't figure it out by the little musical cue I hopefully remember to put in there, when Samus gets the gravity suit, when she turns black and blue, that is indeed a confirmed visual reference to Dark Samus from Prime 2 and 3. I like that detail. And if I forget to put in that audio cue, well then, that's a pointless reference I just made, isn't it? Are you kidding me? Get in there. No, get over there. No. Damn it. Yeah, I mentioned before, these things can be kind of annoying. Are you kidding me? This happens. I've almost always had trouble with these things, honestly. I've maybe had one playthrough during one of my tests where these things worked with me almost entirely well. Also coming up is the first time I actually save my game and quit out and load in, because you're gonna hear the Samus Appears theme here. That's because this is two separate recording sessions. I forget the exact reason why that was, if I recall correctly. It was just the fact that I wanted to make sure I got the cleanup done in one thing, and then I did the rest of the required stuff in a second one, just to be safe. Also, 5 Alpha Metroids. This is kind of ridiculous, but it's also really easy, because super missiles make these things a joke. You know what also could have been, though? I think it's because I actually had to leave my house to do things. Like, I forgot some time or something. I forget. Either way it happened, it's two separate recordings, thankfully. That doesn't really change anything, because at the end of the day, this was basically a segmented 100% run anyway. Although we need to go up here, because there's that little bunch of bubbles that I don't even think has a name blocking our pathway. So in order for us to progress, we need to lay a power bomb here. No, hey, look, that unlocked something. Yeah, I totally did that intentionally. I really did. This is actually an item I missed very early on, as well as in my playthroughs. However, looking back, I don't know how I did, because if you look at the map, where that last little tube I just went through is, the left is clearly not marked as an edge of a room, so I don't know how I missed that. Whee! Yeah. I love shine sparking like that. That's so satisfying. My favorite one is still probably in Fusion, though, right before you fight Nightmare, where you can go through like 4 or 5 different rooms. That's just so fun to do. And in here, if I recall correctly, are our last 2 Metroids, and they're both Gammas. Thankfully, at this point, you're probably pretty used to Gammas. Although I think these are actually our last Gammas in the game. From here on out, they're all Zetas or otherwise. Good riddance. I don't like you as you are, so disappear from my life. And with that, that's also every Metroid in this area. So now we're going to get the Earthquake, which means we can progress onwards towards wherever our end goal is. However, there's a couple more things to do in the distribution center, namely item pickups, honestly. But there is this little side passageway. Which leads to a dead end by the looks, or is it? Ladies and gentlemen, the last item power-up in the game is the Ice Beam, which instantly freezes enemies as well as just increases your damage output. Interesting little idea from it, though, is that it borrows an idea from Metroid Other M's Ice Beam, that when you use it, anything that's flying or, like, floating in water will fall down to the ground, and more often than not, shatter, which is very useful. Hi there! You recognize this. It's Ceres, an amphibian predator capable of reaching ultra-high speeds, making it the fastest animal in SR-388. The layer of skin on its underside serves as a respiratory organ and is sensitive to sudden drops in temperature. Its many eyes and segmented body allow great efficiency in vision and body movement. When a Samus moves to a new location, it digs passages to channel the water from its previous home to prevent dehydration. This behavior likely flooded the distribution center. And the theme is outright a remix of its battle theme from Metroid Fusion, which was already my favorite song in the game, so that's really cool. Samus, though, is a pretty easy boss, but it's a very interesting one at the same time, because you can kill it entirely by shooting it with the ice beam, yes. But if you shoot its segments and freeze them and then hit those with missiles, you make them that little greener, you damage them, causing them to be green, and I believe that means that those sections now take extra damage. So your best bet about this fight is to freeze it, parts, and then shoot it, and then just constantly shoot super missiles at it, if you have any, like I don't. Although, at the end of the day, it's honestly a very easy boss. It's also the second Metroid Fusion reference in a row, because, technically speaking, getting the Ice Beam last is outright a Fusion reference, just in theory, just due to the fact that you get that last from the SAX. Pretty good remix of Samus' theme, though. I still prefer the original because I feel like that the background beats had more kick to them, but that sounds good to me. Really, really easy fight, though. There was also originally, at one point, an intended second role for another Samus creature in the game, involving a cutscene that would have played, but sadly, before that could get added in a future update, the game got DCMA'd, so shit's out of luck there. There were actually a lot of plans for future updates. One of the outright more interesting to me, by the way, Samus is dead, it really is an easy fight, was that there was originally going to be a New Game Plus mode added, and the way that would have worked was, in the main tunnels of SR3D8, the lava and the boulders that were blocking you would be completely removed, meaning you could basically approach any area in whatever order you wanted. And that would have been really cool. You couldn't access the final area, you would still need to destroy every Metroid for that, but that would have been really interesting. On a similar note, they would have added the beam combos from Super Metroid, the ones where if you like use missiles or power bombs when you have certain beams charged up, you would get a special effect. And there were some pretty interesting ones. Most of them were references to Federation Force, like the proximity bombs, the slow beam, so on and so forth. There were 3 extra endings planned that supposedly would have been similar to the ones from Metroid Fusion, where you need to get certain completion amounts on certain difficulties. And the artist has said that she will actually draw those endings at some point, but I'll just go over what they are because we have no images for them yet as far as I'm aware. The first would have been Samus on her bed playing a Game Boy, which, you know, that's obviously the original release of Metroid 2, surrounded by plush Metroids. The second would have shown Samus in an orange dress playing a cello on stage, referencing her cameo in Tetris of all things. And the final ending would have been shown her speed boosting suitless, since a fast completion time would have been required to achieve it. Other endings that were planned for it were just things that outright referenced the 30th anniversary of Metroid, which this game was released on, because Nintendo basically otherwise ignored it. And they would have featured events from prior games in the series, such as Samus fighting Metroid Prime, our reunion with the Edakuns and Dachoras on the BSL station, so on and so forth. But sadly, we have no ways of seeing those until the artist actually does the images like she said she might. There would have been additional log entries added, which we never got anything for those, sadly, just because of it. Like, they would have gotten ones that going into how the whole beta ray process works on duplicating the Metroids and how that would have affected later Metroid variations. In case you can't tell, I'm reading this all off the AM2R page on the Metroid Wiki, because this is all stuff I'm familiar with, but don't have all the words written down for. There were also discussions involving a certain post-credits scene that I'll get into towards the credits. And that's all I can get into in terms of originally future planned content for now. The rest is going to need to wait until the next part, because they technically spoil later parts of the game. Also, we have every energy tank now. Not gonna lie, 10 energy tanks is more than enough, but it looks like so little. Because, if I recall correctly, Zero Mission and Fusion had between 12 and 20, depending on the game, I believe it was. And in those games, and to be fair against this game, that is an obscene amount of health for a game like this, unless you're playing on hard mode. But this just seems been particularly, like a particularly low amount to me. Even though it's honestly one of the most round numbers you can get for something like this. Also, I'm trying to get a speed boost chain here going. It's entirely pointless in the fact that it's just for a missile tank. And I can get the speed booster set up out here anyway. But this, I like to think that this missile tank that I'm about to get is actually a reference to one from Super Metroid. I did it way too... I was really close there, but you might remember the one in Meridia where you had to speed boost on this one particular... what's it called? Plant in order to get it. That's a nice little reference. You have to be right here. And then Samus gets a concussion. That is actually something that never gone quite into the specifics of for the series, and I can also see why, because it would take some of the fun out of it. Exactly how the power suit enhances Samus's mobility and just abilities. Obviously, from a space perspective, it makes her able to be to not die in space. But like from an environmental protection point, or like just a mobility point, what does it do for her? Maybe a future Metroid entry should that ever happen, hopefully. Well, if there's any hope for a series, Metroid I think has hope, because Star Fox finally got a new game with Star Fox Zero and Guard. F-Zero kind of has a spiritual successor with Fast RMX. Who knows what's going to happen? I hope for the best, because Metroid is something I have very not gone into. Wow, that was grammar. Not very much gone into, is that Metroid's actually my third favorite game series, so I'd like to see it get more games. Either way, we're now moving on to some new areas finally, because we finished cleanup and the distribution center, but with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 8, we're heading into the deepest sectors of SR388 and finding the cause of all these damn earthquakes. See you guys then.